Hi and welcome to Mark's Motivational Podcast for another Authors Tuesday. Today I'm delighted to be joined by another great author, Paul Stewart, from Dublin. Paul, thanks a lot for joining me today. You're very welcome.
Thanks very much, Mark, and it's great to be here. I'll just click off something here.
No problem.
I'm the sort of person I'll end up interviewing you. So
Good stuff, yeah. But we'll probably start off by asking, can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and a background on your what the book you've written? It sounds really good.
Well, it's a book about my mother's life story. I enjoyed writing essays at school that I wrote the adventures of the runaway packet of cornflakes and things like
Very
that.
good.
The teacher put a stop to that. After a few weeks, it wasn't good enough. But
Yeah.
and I worked with the neighbour of mine, Ken Maroney, who recently wrote a play. This is many years ago. And then the two of us worked with Roddy Doyle, and we were going to put a play on in the back garden. But then we ended up writing an epic instead, the Ballad of Old Barker about a very nice neighbour up the street who'd had an unfortunate accident. But then we thought, even though he was a nice chap, he might sue us, So even though it's all in our own minds, and so we left that behind. It was pretty good, but I don't think I have a copy of it, sadly, And then the other two of us went off to Annagry Gael School for a month. So that was the end of that, And then when I was 10 years old, my mother, we were allowed to stay up unusually to watch a show called Pompeii, and it was a bit rude actually. So I was keen to see it, But it had a reputation. So how she let us watch it, I don't know. But the next day I asked her over breakfast, I said, what is this Pompeii? You hear people mention Pompeii. She told me all about it. She told the three of my sisters. We sat till nearly lunchtime listening to her tell about this place, the story of it, and then the fact that she'd been there and she'd walked through it and what she'd seen. And then we were getting up to get out, and I thought we better get out and play. I spent the whole morning listening. I was fascinated. And then I said to her, imagine, Ma, I said to her, imagine if it erupted when you were there. And she said, just as an aside, she says, well, it did. So, I mean, I've heard a lot of stories, but she usually told stories, with a lot of mugging and acting out, it was what they did in those days. I don't know, you're possibly younger than me, but they did, people that sat around and told stories, usually told stories about people. So I had to when I left home, I just realized I want to write all this stuff down, but I didn't have a chance till about, I started about 13 years ago. And so it took a long time to do, but there's loads of stories in it, lots of little stories and lots of events. Like I realized I could tell the 20th century pretty much, including Irish history, to a large extent in her life story, which is quite unusual. She's your mammy, she's my mammy,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I remember when I was a kid, I'm just of that age, I was my teenager. One time I visited a friend from school. I don't know, we didn't visit a lot, and he mentioned in passing his mother had worked in French resistance, I says, what do you think? That's amazing. Is she amazing? She's my ma,
Yeah.
Ma is also this other person who did all these other things, potentially, So eventually got it written down, so I'm thankful with that. So I started about 2009, and I haven't always written. I wrote a few screenplays, including a thing called The Accidental Bigamist, which I was hoping to make money on. It was like, I just thought it had a great title and tried to take it from there, but it wasn't. It was to make money rather than trying to do a good job. You've written a bit too. You have a book out, I know. Yeah.
I have, yeah. No, Adventures of Larry Lamppost and Friends, yeah. First time author as well. Yeah, but that sounds fascinating. You work with Roddy Doyle as well. Wow, that's great.
To be honest, I don't know. I can't say I know Roddy Doyle. I mean, when he came out with The Commitments, I happened to see him. I was in Colester, and I happened to run in with him, and knew he'd done a few plays. Like we weren't friends. He was a friend of a friend, you know. So I'm just we were
Okay.
acquaintances. I can't say I know him very well, but he got this book commitments with the publisher, you know, or, you know, not a high ranking publisher, and he just mentioned that as a quick conversation. And then I was out of the country, and next time I saw him, I was walking down Grafton Street.
Yeah.
At the time, it was a new thing where a lot of people decided around that shave their heads a lot. You know, when I was growing up, you were
Yeah.
kind of a different thing. People did, and it's a good thing now. I recognize. I thought all these people with shaved heads, and next time, so the next person I saw with a shaved head was Roddy. How are you, Roddy?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
about him. Yeah, and then I was at a concert with a Neil Young concert. A friend of mine persuaded me to go. It was far too loud for me. I don't like these loud concerts. But we went in to get a beer. And a friend had far too much to drink, and I just oh, there's Roddy Doyle there. And this guy's got too many pints in him. He roars out, "Did you used to be Roddy Doyle?" You know, so no, there's no conversation. Poor old Roddy disappeared quite rightly.
Yeah.
But no, so that was just an acquaintance, you know. But it just happened that done that, you know, quite a strange thing.
Yeah. And
Ken Maroney didn't. The other guy, he didn't remember. And I've no copy of the thing. So that's what happened according to my recollection, anyway.
and what's the name of your book, Paul? What's the name of your book again?
It's Eveline McGrath, Eveline McGrath, McGrath. You find that on Amazon.com under that.
Amazon, great.
An Odyssey, a 20th century story, because she was born in Banbridge and she was raised by grandparents in Balbriggan, and she always wanted to get home, really, you know. But, and she escaped from them to do nursing in Kent in England, and then she took casualties. You know, she had a rough time in training, got really ill, but she managed to keep going. And then she took casualties from Dunkirk in the Battle of Britain, and she was just, you know, say she was about less than 50 miles from a potential invasion site, you know, at that time. And it was thought that there would be invasion, you know. I mean, not that she was young, she didn't take it all too seriously, you know. But then she met a chap, a casualty from Dunkirk. She was dealing with a wound in his neck. It went right through from one side of the back of his neck.
Journey,
So,
yeah.
Put a packing in it every day to make sure it healed all right. And she said to him, "Is it really true what they say, Nazis?" And he said, "It's worse than that." He said, "They're demons, you know," because this is his story. He was walking the road towards Dunkirk with a lot of civilians, and the plane strafed them, and then came back and strafed a pregnant woman and killed her.
Oh,
you know,
God.
pregnant. And he said he could see the pilot smiling. Now, I don't see how you could actually, but that was his story anyway. And so she decided to join up with the army, what do they call the QAs, the Queen Alexandra Imperial Nursing Service. Back then, partly because she liked the uniform in fairness, you know, but also because and then two, you know, a few years later, she finished her training and she went to. It was just a few days after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, and she went to the matron and said she wanted to join the QAs, and the matron persuaded her to stay another 6 months to make sure she was steady on her feet as a nurse, you know. So she did that, and then she was in various places, Leeds Castle, places that you and I wouldn't ever see. She was in Goodwood House, you know, the house belonging to the Birds people, you know, Birds Custard people. So she billet the soldiers and obviously the nurses then too, in all these fabulous places, you know. And she was off to. She didn't know where she was going. She went out. She went out one night to a dance. She wasn't supposed to go out at all because they were pending or to leave any time or wherever they were going. But she went to a nearby place called her Castle and had a dance there. She met some Canadians and Americans for the first time. And then she got home late at night. Got into quietly snuck into a room, and the lights were on. He said, and we're off, we're going. She was traveling then on the train up towards Scotland, and she heard people mention Arundel Castle, and she said, "Don't talk about Arundel Castle. We don't want anybody to know we went there." And they said, "Well, that's the name of the ship we're on."
Oh, all right.
Amazing little coincidences to have. So
Yeah.
yeah, so she was in a ship, I think KM5. I can't remember the name of the company. I have it in the book, but it's a fine detail. But the neighbouring ship, the Strathallan, was sunk, and most people survived. They actually they got people off board. You know, soldiers jumped up onto the nearest destroyers, and people, you know, nurses, got off into the sea. But Hitchcock wrote. He saw a picture of this in the paper, and he wrote his movie, The Lifeboat. I don't know if you ever heard of it, Lifeboat.
I did, yeah.
Because of that story, he wrote that movie, Lifeboat. You know, filmed it.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's very interesting. Yeah, Shady.
So she ends up in Algiers, and she's in a tented hospital there. The first night, they don't really have proper barbed wire up, and in the middle of the night, the guy jumps over what they have there, naked, all oiled all over his body with a knife, and he's stealing stuff, you know. And it's a and he's captured. One nurse saw him inside her tent taking stuff from you know. I don't think she interfered, as far as I know, you know. But then he ran off. The guards couldn't shoot him because they could shoot anybody, and they wouldn't like him to be shot anyway. But he escaped off. But the next day they had all sorts of security in place. And so she was there, and she was in Bone. There's a place called Annaba in Algiers currently. It was formerly called Bone, and before that it was called. It was a site of where Saint Augustine lived, you know, years before. So it's a kind of ancient place. So she was there, and then she went to Caserta. There's lots of stories about these things. She nearly drowned. She had to. Yeah, but
sounds so interesting. Yeah, it sounds brilliant. The book. You'll have to share the link with me so I can put it on the show notes for people to buy as well. You know.
I mean, not now though, eh? No.
No, like after the show, like you can share it and I can put it on the notes for people to buy then, like, you know.
Yeah, and that'd be great, Mark. Thanks, mate. So
very good.
Then she got engaged. No, she didn't get. She had a boyfriend on the ship called the HMS Penelope, which was a famous ship at the time. It actually, there was an author called C.S. Forster wrote a book. They were docked in New York for a little while for some reason. I think refurbishing the ship or something like that. It had so many in it that it was called HMS Pepperpot. So that was probably why they were there. And he interviewed the people on the staff. He wrote a book called The Ship. You've probably heard of C.S. Forster. Have you? Hornblower stories and that.
It sounds familiar. Yeah, sounds familiar.
They did a TV show basically. He's probably otherwise forgotten now, but there was a TV show in the last 10, 15 years probably. But he wrote a ship about this crew. I mean, he changed the character.
Yeah.
So she moved from Barry. She was in Barry, and a thing called Little Pearl Harbor happened there. You'd look it up, but
yeah.
There's a whole chapter there about her stay in Barry, and she wasn't there. She was there less than a month, but it was quite an episode. It was the second largest bombing of Allied shipping in World War II, and then there was mustard gas aboard one of the ships, one of the American ships, quite secret. And so the New Zealand head of the Air Force in the region said that if the Germans attacked them there, he'd take it as a personal insult, because they pushed far north, midway, maybe near midway up Italy by this stage. But they came in with a lot of planes from Yugoslavia, and along the Adriatic and surprised them. And they hit this ship that was secret with the mustard gas. So she was working in a hospital there, and suddenly she realized the next morning this guy has mustard gas burns because they've been trained about it. And the head, the chief medical officer phoned down the harbour. We've got mustard gas burns here in patients. Why weren't we told it? Because they could have cleaned them off or something. Meantime, we know.
Yeah.
But that they weren't told, and they pretended they knew nothing about it. And maybe the person who spoke didn't know about it, because I think Churchill ordered to keep quiet, and it was Roosevelt obviously didn't say anything about it either. And so that was quite difficult dealing with, because they're already taking a lot of casualties. Then they had the casualties from the bombing, and then they had the mustard gas.
My God, yeah.
And she was off to near Naples, a place called Torre Annunziata. I'm probably telling you the whole story here, but anyway, there's more.
Yeah. No, it does sound great. It sounds brilliant. Like, it's a great, giving people a great insight into the book. So that's great, Paul. Yeah, great insight. Yeah.
So she went through. So she was stationed on this hospital in Torre Annunziata near Naples, and it was actually sitting on the volcano. It's actually on the. I didn't actually realize, but it's actually on the volcano. So it erupted while he was there over a period of time, And of course, she had already been to Pompeii. She knew what happened in 79 AD. But I don't think she was still young. She was in her mid-20s, and you don't think she's gonna die. I think that's how I understand it. But there was a doctor who'd been in the hospital, and he'd been through a volcano in Ecuador, and so he said you can also get an earthquake. So if you see the ceiling bulb wave, get the building, which is all very well, but there was this heavy stuff, this heavy tetra falling, So it was like between the devil and the deep blue sea. And wandered around the hospital. They were looking at the lights so much they were bumping into each other, so they just thought, I wish anything,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and after the war, she worked with Monsignor Hugh O'Flaherty. She used to get him breakfast in the hospital. She worked because he'd come and say mass, and there was shortage of priests. She was Catholic, Nobody's Catholic anymore. Then she helped. He got her involved with prisoners who were in the hospital she knew nothing about, and so she used to bring them things to do. I think they made mats for her that she kept with her for much of her life. When she had to move house, she finally had to get rid of them. There was no use taken. And after the war, then she nursed Florence Nightingale's doctor. She nursed him in his last while. Yeah, and she had a bit of story. She got a story about her that I don't think has been published before. And that was just a bit of an intro. And started her own business. She did TB nursing after the war, and she started her own business. And she's quite the eventful life, really. So
there's some life. Yeah, wow.
I just thought, I wonder, is there any connection when I was writing and started writing? Is there any connection with Korea or crisis and things like that? I didn't think there was, but in fact, they contacted her about the Korean War. Would she join up again? And she says they called it a police action, and she said, "Well, you contact me if there's a war, So and then the Suez crisis, she had my sister, Rosemary, by then, and they looked for her again, and she said she just had a baby, possibly. They said, "You should have told us." This is what she said anyway. And she said, "I don't tell you to have a baby,
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
God.
Yeah. So then when I was tiny, they had the Sputnik. I don't know if you remember a thing called Sputnik. It was the first satellite. It was put up by the Russians called Sputnik.
Yeah, I heard of that before. Yeah.
Yeah, they got me a soft toy, and that was named Sputnik by them. Because of that,
Yeah.
So you kind of a good chunk of 20th century. The other thing is, when she was 2, she was in Balbriggan. The sack of Balbriggan occurred. So that she had evacuate cherries, you know.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's a pretty full life. So I think it's a pretty action-packed story. Hopefully,
Really sounds it, yeah. Sounds brilliant, yeah. And go ahead, sorry.
hopefully it's a bit funny too. You know, she had, you know, there was funny things happening. You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, well done for doing it, Paul. It sounds really, really good. And how was the strategy you used for writing that book as well? Can you talk to people about you know, for like, did you use a kind of a strategy you're writing, like when you were doing it, did it take you long to write it?
It actually took me 13 years, and I stopped for 3 years because
Okay.
I think you need a little bit of encouragement. And
Mm.
do you get much encouragement in your book? I mean, did you find that, or you not there?
I
Sorry.
know I did. I did definitely. I did. Now just with because it's a children's book, your
Oh,
family help you, like your kids help you along. You know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
My book would be suitable for 14 up, you know, maybe.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think below that, not, you know. So I think that's kind of good
Mm.
stuff. So what I wanted to do was write the best book I could. I just made that my
Yeah.
aim. But the thing is, you know, I'm a bit lazy too, you know. So part of me will say, sure, grand, you know. But
Mm.
I didn't let away with it at the same time, you know. So you try and get a certain standard. But a cousin of mine was really good. I kind of given up for 3 years because I thought, why am I
Mm.
bothered? Nobody's interested, you know. And he saw me. We met him at a funeral. He's a famous comedian in the North, Eugene Fitzpatrick. But
Oh yeah.
he said to me, "How's the book?" And I didn't even know he knew I was writing the book. So, and I said, "Ash, you never get it. You never get it right, you know." You know what I mean? You know that feeling, right? So he says, "Send it me." He just says, "Send it me, send it me." And he gave me his card. So I thought, well, I'll tee it up, you know. I'll tee it up.
Yeah.
I'll the first 75 pages, and I'll send it to him, and I won't hear anything about it. It's actually, no, sorry, that's very, but it's true. So he got back to me within 24 hours,
Cool.
and he was so encouraging. I mean, I reckon my aunt Brenda, I think, encouraged him quite a bit, you know. So you know, when he was starting out, I think he got great. I think and maybe his older sisters gave him encouragement. So he probably
Mm.
understood. You know, he's trying to do something himself. So I don't know, but he was so kind. Now, so kind. It was great. So
Brilliant. Yeah.
I got back into it, got back into saddle in. And then another guy, a colleague at work, unsurprisingly, it's usually people that you might think are a bit cynical that I found
Mm.
were helpful. And first time, anyway, I've been on talking, but he said, "Oh, I just mentioned it before Christmas there that I was going through it again. I thought I'd be ready to finish it." And he says, "Well, I'll read it, you know." And he hadn't read a book in 10 years. He was not a big reader, you know. So he did
Mm.
though, and I think he enjoyed it tremendously. So
Great.
great, so I thought, well, you know, if somebody likes it, you know, then I'll
Mm.
do it. But just that makes the difference, you know.
Oh,
So if
definitely.
worrying about giving some encouragement, you don't need to say, "Oh, that's the greatest thing you've ever done," but some bit of
Mm.
encouragement would be. I think it's helpful, and I don't think. I think maybe people do it maybe emptily, but it's hard to find. You know?
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's
Look.
available. It's Eveline McGrath. You can find it under. It's an Eveline McGrath An Odyssey, 20th century story, and you can find it on Amazon.com easily.
Yeah.
You know, Eveline McGrath, McGrath. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I
Oh,
when I was starting it out, I just did the first draft, and I found where the natural chapters were, and there was kind of natural chapters in it. You know, really strong natural chapters. Then I had
mm.
description themes. You know, I visited various places that I could visit, or I also visited them online and tried to describe the place. Hopefully, not too much. And then add in metaphors. You know, because it just gives a bit of color to the book. You know, and
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
then rewrite lots.
Yeah. Yeah.
know, so that was my strategy. You know, I'm sure people have better strategies than that. You know,
Mm.
and doing fiction. Um,
Yeah.
I feel I prefer that I've written something factual in this case, you know, because I kind of think it's a story. If I hadn't told it, it mightn't have got told, you know. So I
Hmm.
think it's worth telling. So I wanted to be a good read and something I would want to read, and I think I achieved that, you know.
Very good. Yeah.
and that encouragement helps. And of course, you're being encouraging too. So thanks very much.
Yeah. Oh, no problem. Like, even you're saying like motivation, like, for people that read your book, like myself, like people, friends and family who read and they get a good laugh out of it, like you say, oh, so you're doing something right, it kind of makes you think, oh, this is good. People are going to really like this. So, it's very encouraging that way, isn't it?
Well, yeah, what it is, when somebody there's not a relation as well. I mean, but
Mm.
being advocacy was hugely encouraging, very, very nice. And still, he read the full version lately, and he phoned me. I was actually feeling a bit low last week, and I was driving from town, and I said, please, something good happened. And
Yeah.
next minute, this call, and I missed the call, but he left a voice message, and I wrote it down. I listened to it 18 times, and
Yeah. Very good.
I typed it up because I just thought this is gold. I mean,
Mm.
I mean, yeah, he didn't, we just chatted about it, but it was so nice.
Cool. Yeah.
But yeah. So that was a question you asked me now, man.
And I was just saying, like, I agree with you saying about the motivation side of things, like people, the guy you work with, and your cousin as well.
So lovely. And first time
Yeah.
ourselves, and he won't mind me. Hopefully, he won't mind me telling this. First time I met him, he started work when I worked there a couple of years ago, and I said some aside, the way you kind of say some jokey aside. I think he thought, I don't know who this guy is. He could be. I could be plagued with him at lunchtime, so he didn't even reply. He didn't even reply. He told me this lately. So it wasn't like we were best buddies or anything, but we kind of developed a rapport. We have a bit of a laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and
Yeah.
I'll move on. Will I move on? See, how are we doing here? I'm probably
Yeah.
talking tonight.
Oh, you're fine. No, just I was going to ask you as well, Paul. What's your favorite type of books that you read yourself, and I suppose what book kind of motivated you or inspired you is a better word, like from what you've written.
My favorite book originally, the first book that I really loved, and I don't know if it was a thing called The Secret Island by Eveline, and I think this is a very common thing.
Great book, yeah.
It was actually went to said they were, I was like 4 or 5, I don't know what, I was very young anyway. And I said to her, "Ma, you have to read this," And she says, "Oh." So probably wasn't her age bracket, but I mean that was just a great story. So I think we're missing the idea of a story. It's all about literature, and I think the great writers of literature. I mean, I enjoyed War and Peace hugely, and now every second chapter is a lot of cod philosophy, so I would skip that. I used to read every chapter, and there's no story in it. So, I mean, some people like him as a philosopher, but I didn't think he had anything to say. But the story, he used to write a lot of detail about surroundings, so you felt like you were there a bit. So I
Very
saw
good.
that. And
That's a big book. That's a big book, Paul. War and Peace.
you can skip half it. Just a heads up, you can skip half it. So the first chapter,
Yeah.
then the third and fifth, etc. Now the other thing about that is he wrote an extra 10% that he didn't need to write. I mean, the last 10%,
Okay.
there's no story in it, so he should have
Oh,
stopped saying this. That's my opinion, of course. So, but the rest, great story. But my favorite read was Crime and Punishment. That's a great read. Now I don't like all that's Dostoevsky. That's just a great read. I don't know if you ever tried it. Probably people think it's very highbrow, but I thought it was a terrific read, And so Bill Bryson's factual books, Made in America and stuff like that. Did you ever read Bill Bryson? So
no, I must have. Look at that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just an example here, Made in America. So it talks about words. It talks about inventions. A lot of the books give you history that you wouldn't read anywhere else. Much more interesting than hearing about the Home Rule Bill four times. How many was it? 3 or 4? I've lost track now. And I reviewed that lately. But the stuff that matters, like the history of ice, the history of oil. These things are fascinating.
Yeah, really are.
Just things like that. I'm trying to give a history. I give an awful lot of history in italics in the book as well. So you can skip past if you don't want history. You can just read the story. But it's context. So when when my ma was heading off to, she joined up. I just tell, like, just how much of the world that was ruled by, or the Europe was ruled by the Nazis, and strength of the American force at that time when Pearl Harbor was attacked. So it was, you look back at history, you think, how well, sure, the Allies won, and sure, it was obvious enough, that's the end of that, move on, But it certainly wasn't that at the time necessarily,
No, it wasn't that black and white.
Yeah, one kind of, I mean, of course, we're Irish people, so we're, but I think 10,000 Irish people died in World War II,
That's right, yeah.
Some of them in various armies, But she's a Irish person too. She went back to, she went back to live. She finally lived with her parents, or her mother in Banbridge. That's where she was born. I don't remember, it's earlier on. And but she looked for a job in the blood transfusion service, and she had it all got. The doctor was not really happy with it. And then a little old walnut-faced lady said, "What school did you go to?" And she mentioned Loretto Convent in Balbringan, which meant that she was Catholic at the time. To be honest, I don't like to get into this sectarian stuff, but it was something that mattered in her life. So the woman made a rude noise, and she didn't get the job. Now her main competition was, who had less experience than her, was partly deaf and was going for an operation shortly and couldn't stay in the job long. She knew this ahead of time, so she didn't get it. So she just moved to Dublin. That's a little bit of Irish history to do with the right, And then
yeah. But it's good to bring that into it as well, Paul. Like, that sounds great to be able to bring that into part of it as well. Like, that sounds great. Now, the book sounds absolutely brilliant. And what's next for you, Paul? Have you anything else in the pipelines to watch out for?
Well, not immediately, but I thought, I'm a few years away from retirement, so I thought I'm interested in. I've been researching a bunch of chapters with stories related to the history of medicine.
Oh, cool.
Together,
Sounds great. Yeah.
That.
Yeah, but listen, it's been great talking today, Paul. I really appreciate coming on, and you might just share your links as well, so I can put them on the show notes for people to check them out as well.
Well, I just send on the email, yeah.
Email it to me, please, and and I'm sure people are going to really enjoy reading your book. So thanks a million, Paul, for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, God bless and take care. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So that was Paul Stewart, everybody, on Mark's motivational podcast, Authors Tuesday. So listen, I wish you all the success going forward, Paul, with your books and your writing.
Thanks very much.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks everybody for watching. Thank you.